Hello and welcome to today's Criterion Learning Series. We're going to be covering the advanced dashboards today. A lot of this is just going to be the setup. I will show a dashboard here in the beginning, but we're going to talk about how the setup works. And then to actually enable it, what you'll need to do is reach out to support and or your partner to get these enabled. They'll talk about what goes into getting that going and so forth. I believe there is an additional cost to that. So we'll talk about that when you talk to support or your partner. But today we're going to focus on actually how it actually works in the system. So let me go ahead and switch over here. Browser will come up here in a moment. All right, so as I mentioned, everything we're going to do today is going to be on the administrative side. So that's where the dashboards reside. So I'm just going to go right out of self-service here, and we're going to go over to another tab where I'm showing the dashboard. So here's an example of a dashboard. So today, what we have are a few analytics that you can add onto here and create your dashboards. What we're looking for, of course, is if you have ideas for what you would like on there, our support team is here to help you out. Basically, we'll go back, we'll write that analytics. So if there's something in your mind you think of, oh, I need the, a certain summary or a graph that shows some information that is not available today, we're going to build those. We're going to make them available for everybody to have that. Obviously, it's going to look at your data, not show your data to somebody else. But we'll be adding those over time into the system, similar to how we add reports. So you'll be able to choose from a large library of different KPIs you may want on your dashboard here. Now, from this view, I do want to mention a couple of things. One is you'll get an author. The author is going to be somebody who can actually write or edit the dashboard. They'll be able to make changes to them and so forth. And then you're going to get readers. Readers are ones that you just view the dashboards. So they can interact a little bit with them, but they're not going to create anything like that. And that'll be available. You'll assign the employees who can see the different dashboards that are out there. I'm looking in HR, but if I go to payroll, I've got a dashboard over there. If I go to recruiting, et cetera, there's dashboards and I can see those. I would just need to, open up those tabs to see those. And, I can see those dashboards there. You can have different dashboards in the different modules. You'll notice I have a drop-down menu up here. On my HR, I just have one dashboard available, but when I go to payroll, I actually have two different dashboards that are enabled. I'm not sure really if there's a huge difference between the two, but you'll see how I can toggle between the different ones there. And then you can set one of them as your default on there. And of course, you can have more than two. You can have as many as you like. What we do is we generate some defaults that are available for everybody. You can make copies of those, and I'll show you how that all works. But you'll be able to make copies and make your edits and remove or move things around or change the colors or whatever. And then you could use that either as your default or, maybe as an alternative one on there. You'll see under recruiting, here's an example of this one. I only have one dashboard there. All right, so let's look a little bit on the setup of like the users and how the actual, you choose what are your defaults there. So the first thing, I'll just go to employees. And you need to decide who's actually going to be a reader and or an author. So I'll just select somebody here. And under security, you will have, once you've enabled their login, BI access right here. So default for everybody is no access, because probably most of the employees don't need access to a dashboard, but you may have executives or administrators who are going to be using the dashboards, and you'll need to assign them as a reader for probably most people. They're not going to be editing the dashboards and creating new things. So reader should be sufficient for that. So you'll do that. When you do that, what will happen is this will enable the dashboard up here. And when they go to HR or payroll or recruiting, wherever, they'll be able to then see the dashboards. If they're already logged in, they'll need to hit refresh, basically, so that it'll read that this has changed for them. All right, so that's simple as that, and you'll see the author. The author is going to get settings under reports that say analytical designer. If they're not an author, they're not going to see this option right here. All right, so you'll see how I have the edit there. Now, to set your default dashboards and stuff like that, you'll be able to go under general and you'll see dashboards right here. And here we go, recruiting, payroll, HR, and scheduling. And you can add dashboards to these various modules and then set the default. Like here, as I mentioned in payroll, I have 2. HR, I just have 1. If I wanted to, or recruiting, I just have 1. If I wanted to have maybe the payroll dashboard available in HR, I just need to hit plus, and I could select the dashboard that I want. Let's say payroll dashboard number 3. And I just hit save, and now it's available. The default is still this, but if I wanted to switch it, that would be the default now. All right, so you can see how I can, obviously I can only have 1 default at a time, but you can have as many dashboards as you need to under each section. If I wanted to have, 8 different dashboards for whatever reason or HR, I could set that, no problem. And just hit update, and then that would be available. When I go back to my HR dashboards, I would have to hit refresh because I've changed that setting. But now this drop-down menu in the top, I'd be able to switch to the other dashboard or dashboards as necessary. All right, so that's some of the basic configurations of how you actually would enable them and set the defaults and stuff like that. Let's look at the actual analytical designer, which is where you would do the work to edit the dashboards and change certain settings in there. So when I click on analytical designer, I see edit dashboard. All right, when I come here, there's some settings over here on the left that you may want to be aware of. So first off, you'll see here I have dashboards, I have analysis, and I have data sets in here. I can mark them as favorites if I want to. Now, I only have 5, so it's not like it's crazy and I can't easily find certain ones. But if I wanted to make one a favorite or something like that, then when I click on favorites, it's going to show up. All right, you'll notice here I can do like that, and I go to favorites, and I've got analysis and payroll dashboard as favorites. If I click on recent, it would show ones that I've recently opened in like basically the order that I've done them. So you could kind of see here's the ones I've worked on recently. I could change this to a list if I want to do that. So I could say, oh, which, what did I modify last? And, I could look at it that way. Of course, I can still hit the little star there and make it a favorite. Again, if you don't have a huge number of them, it's not really going to make a big difference in here. You can make folders to organize them again if you would like to. So if you want to make a folder and call it, taxes or something like that, and you got some tax dashboards or something, you could certainly do that. You would just click new folder and you would call it taxes. And then you can save your things into these folders if you would like. All right, so I can like save this dashboard into, a folder there, add to a folder and save it into my folder called taxes. All right, so that would be there. Now from this view, it doesn't make any difference, but when I go to my folders and I go to taxes, I would be able to see that. So it's just a way of organizing it, not extremely useful unless you have a lot. Now, there's certainly no limit to the number you could have, but as you can see, I can clearly see them right here, but some people really like to organize things. So that's what that's for over here. Shared folder would be if there's other authors out there and you want to make sure that they can see, a folder that you're sharing or something like that, you can make a shared folder and they would be able to see that there. All right, you'll notice here I could search. Again, I have so few that searching is not really going to gain me any advantage here, but I could search for, payroll or whatever, and just the ones that are payroll would come up. All right, and underneath that are the 3 different areas where we're going to look at this. So first off is the actual dashboards that I've created. So I've published these dashboards. I've published the analysis to the dashboard. So you may remember I had 3 payroll dashboards, 1 recruiting and 1 HR. Now those names, of course, I could call them whatever I want. If I wanted to call this, dashboard number 4, it doesn't need to have the word payroll in it. I would just need to remember that it had payroll information in it if I wanted to use it for payroll or something. So it's probably a good idea to kind of indicate what it is there, but you can call them anything you like. Analysis. Now, what these are, again, we have some defaults in these, but these are where you actually build out the information that's going to go onto a dashboard. So you build the analysis and you publish it to a dashboard. So I have 4 of these. What I've actually done is I've taken the payroll one and I've published it like 3 times. That's why I have 3 payroll dashboards. But you can see these out here. And data sets is actually where we're querying the different database tables or views to get the data. Now, this is something where you as an end user cannot set up a new data set. You'll see a button here for this, but At this point, you're probably going to be going, I have no idea what to do here. And that's okay. We're here to help you with these. But you'll see that you can actually collect data from lots of different sources. So maybe you use Salesforce and you can, talk to, IT or somebody about how do I connect to Salesforce or, some other database engine, a SQL server, whatever. And you want to have that on a dashboard. You can certainly bring in data from other systems into the dashboards within here. So, if I did have Salesforce, you'll see here, I could call it whatever I like, and then you can set that thing up. I'm not going to go into the settings of this. Like here's SQL. You probably would want to talk to, somebody in IT or who knows the data source and could help you with this configuration. Again, I'm not going to talk about how this all works, but that's, what you could do in theory. We do have these. Let me show it in a little better view. These are the ones that we've already configured. And this is where I mentioned we're going to be adding stuff. So if you come up with some KPI and it's, I don't know, something to do with turnover or whatever, you may see new ones in here as we add these. Now, one thing that I do want to show, I'm going to click on one that's here, is this is the settings of it. Don't worry about the actual configuration of it. Again, like I said, we're going to create this here, but you'll see here, it's telling me how many rows were imported and when it was last refreshed. Now that's a key there because we don't pull the data in real time from the system. What we do is we refresh data sets, and you can refresh them really as frequently as you want. Just because my demo data doesn't change very often, I refresh it once a day, but you can refresh it as much as you like there. So you'll see here, I can set a schedule for this. It doesn't take a long time to refresh. As you can see here, just if less than 30 seconds, typically around 15 seconds. I'm not sure what these are. I've been messing around with my data, so maybe that explains why they took longer. But here are the different times it's refreshed. You can do it manually. If I need to see something on a dashboard, I just added it. Maybe you do like an hourly refresh or something like that, but you need it updated today, right this very moment. You can click refresh now and say, I want a full refresh, or just show me, refresh it, just the new records, the things that have changed since I last refreshed it at 3:58 a.m. This morning. So either one, if I hit continue here, it's going to take, roughly, 20 seconds or so to do that. And then I'll see that out there. So here you see it's running and it's here. Here's my schedule out here. I can schedule things. So here's a daily full refresh I do at 3:58 a.m. If I want to, and you'll see, it took 15 seconds. It's not a huge amount of time. If I want to look at this schedule here, you can see when I set it to run. So full refresh, I use my own time zone. I'm in the Pacific time zone here. The date and time that I wanted to do, or the time that I started setting this up, and how frequently I wanted to do it. So if I wanted every hour or something like that, I could do that there. You'll notice here, I do need to do a start date in the future. So I've had this one configured for a while. So it's going to just keep going. But if I want to change it, it does need to be in the future. Even if it's the same day, as long as the time is in the future, it'll allow me to make that change. All right, I can add a new schedule if I like. If I want to do an incremental refresh, every hour or something like that, I can go ahead and set that up to do that out there. Or maybe I want to do a full refresh every 6 hours or something along those lines. All right, some of the other settings here to talk about, the permissions, don't worry about that. This is if you wanted to only allow certain authors or readers to be able to see this, you could set that up. Again, we're going to take care of that for you, so don't need to worry about it. And then this will show you where it's actually used. So it's used on an analysis dashboard, an analysis here called HR analysis, and also on this HR dashboard. So you can see where this is used, and you can click on them if you actually want to go to that analysis and see where it's actually used. I can see it's actually right here on this one. All right, so that's in a nutshell how the data sets work. And you'll see, because I just refreshed it, it's now saying 2 minutes ago it was refreshed. All right, so if you're seeing oh, I know I have a refreshing every hour or something like that, and then you find out that it's missing some data. I just did a new hire. Maybe it just hasn't been refreshed in the last 15 minutes. So that's why you're not seeing it right away. This is where you can quickly go in there and look at that. So let's look at analysis here. And I'm going to click on that HR analysis one because that's where it's using that one data set. So here you can see, now this was what you saw when I clicked on dashboard, but all these things on the setup are over here. So this is showing me all the different KPIs I have on my dashboard. I've got an employee count, average age, etc. You can see those things on there. So I could do that. Now, when I click on any one of these, you'll notice that this is changing various settings over here that it's, applicable to this particular one out there. So like this is the number of employees. Here's what's actually happening. We're counting the employee IDs, all right? When I do this, I could say, okay, what am I doing here? So maybe I want, now it doesn't make a lot of sense to do like a sum of employee or, like an average employee IDs, unless you maybe had it broken up by employers. And so you want to say the number, average number of employees for each employer or something like that, then maybe that would make sense. But because it's a number here, I get different things I can do. I can do a sum of this. It would count it all up, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But maybe if you're doing something with salaries, then summing them up makes sense. Summing up the count, each employee doesn't, if you think about it, doesn't make a lot of sense there. Count. Now, the difference between these two, it's a little technicality, but let's say you had the same employee in multiple companies. You'd want to count, do you want to count them twice because they're in 2 companies or 3 companies or whatever? You want to count them multiple times, or do you only want to count them one time? So that's the difference. Count would say, okay, if they're in 3 companies, I'm going to count them 3 times. If they're in 1 company, I'm going to count them once. If I do count distinct, I'm only going to count them 1 time. So that's how that would work. Now, of course, it does depend on what field you're using. So employee ID, it's possible that you're using the same employee ID across multiple employers, maybe even for different employees. So maybe it would make sense to do a count there because 2 different people have the same employee number. So it depends on what you're doing on there. Like I said, it's a little technical. So I did want to, kind of differentiate those. Max, median, and min. So depending on what you're looking at, let's say like the age here, I might want to say, show me the maximum age, show me the minimum age, or something like that. And then you'll see other things here, standard deviation, variance, and percentile. So again, because it's a number field, I got those different options there. If I choose something that's not a number field, let's say employer, I'm going to have different options for that because that is actually like a name of the employer. And I can't summarize text. I won't be able to do an average of text. I can count them, but I can't do some of the things I could do that I could do with a number. Same thing if I had a date. I can't summarize a date. I can, maybe find a range of the dates, like a min and max, but I wouldn't be able to get like the average date or something like that. So again, it depends on the type of field you're doing there. Now, because this is just one visual one, you'll see it's a KPI. I do have other options in here for how this is looking. Now, this one is just one field that I'm counting. So, not probably going to make sense to put it on a chart because it would just be like all the same color. But, when I get to something like this, then it does make sense to maybe be a pie chart or a bar or something else because it has lots of different values that could be in this particular one there. So you can see how that works there. These are different visualizations of that data. All right, so you'll see here like a gauge chart. Again, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do this, but maybe if you're doing, a salary thing and you wanted to show a gauge showing like where the average is compared to the min and max, then that might make sense for that. But there's different visuals you can do on there. And it does tell you that it requires a minimum of certain number of things. Like if I make this donut chart, I need to have certain values on there for that. Same thing with like a pie chart. I need to have things that'll make it, unique values like this. So it will let you know if there's something that you need to do on there. All right, if I want to change the values on here, I can add other things into here. Again, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for this one, but maybe for here, I want to, add something else in here. So this is showing a group by ethnic group, but if I wanted to do gender or something like that, I can add that in, and then this is like a sub on there. All right, so you see how that works there. So you can add things in there, just a drag and drop, and you can drag it out if you don't want to do that there. All right, now these are just the fields I can add in there. And this is where I was mentioning we may need to add fields because you might say, oh, I want to have the, that department here, but maybe you want division. So we'll be editing these and adding those values in based off of what you want. So don't be surprised if you see new things over here for this out there. Now, when I do something that does have like colors, like obviously this text doesn't have colors, you can change the colors for different values and so forth in there. So if I want to come in here, and you'll see here, I can different options on this here. I can change different things. Maybe I want to rename this to something else. If I want to see the data behind the scenes, I can do this. If I want to duplicate this and then maybe make a small change, I could do that there. So there's different options I can do as far as clicking on this. You'll see here, here's the visuals of this. So, changing the title, a subtitle if I want to do that. And then maybe even changing like the font and stuff like that. So if I want to make the number larger, I could do stuff like that. So different things you can do in there. Now this, again, just a text one's super easy, but let's say I click on this one. Now I have other things. Oh, well, I'm going to change the colors in here. I want to turn the legend on or off, or I want to turn off the labels. I could do that in there. So you'll see that here. If I tell it, I want the legend to be on the right, I can have it change to the right or left, or whatever makes sense there for that there. And same thing with the data labels. Do I want it to show the number and a percentage, or just the percentage? You'll see I have different options I can do on these things to change those visuals. All right, so those are all the different properties you can do to change how this looks, and that applies to other ones as well. If you change the font size in here, maybe it makes sense to change the font size in this one so that it kind of matches. It might look a little bit out of balance if this is a very large font and this is a very small one. So you may want to do that. Here you'll see there could be various interactions with this. So you can say like show a tooltip on there, and that way when they put their mouse over, you see how it popped out and it says female, and then this says male. If you don't want to show a tooltip, you can say, well, let's make it a basic tooltip, and you can turn those things off, and then you can, choose to have the primary value as the title. You'll see how it's like changed these things in there. If I do that, you'll notice how it's kind of showing more information on that. All right, so you get an idea of how that is showing the visuals on that right there. All right, let me come down to one where there's a range here. Now this one is this is actually a separate data set within this analytic. You'll notice here the data set has changed. See how this one says DWF, FHR, KPI. Now this one has a different one. This is that one that I refreshed a few minutes ago. So you can kind of see how this is working. Now I do have a forecast on here. All right, so that is something that you can enable for stuff where it makes sense to have a forecast. Like if you're simply doing a count like this, there's not really a forecast that can happen. But if you're looking back over a date range, you may want to project forward on something and do a forecast. So you can enable that if you like. You'll see here, I can, again, click on these little things here to get more information. So here's my forecast on there. I could tell it how many periods. In this situation, I'm doing for each month. So that is the period. See here, the axis is the month. I could do like years or something like that if I wanted to change this to be years or quarters or something. Then I might want to change this to be something else. So I'm looking quarters. Maybe I only want to look forward 2 quarters. But here it'll say, okay, looking back on all of this data right here, if I project forward 6 months, this is what it's going to do. Now, this is kind of showing like the minimum and maximum that could happen there. And then this is showing the average of those. All right, so if I look at that, that's how that is showing right there. If I want, and if I want to change this to like 2 months or something like that, I could do 2. And that would allow me to have that. I just have to hit apply, and then it will change that projection, to 2 months. You can go backwards. It may not make sense in certain situations to go backwards, but if you wanted to, you can say, let's go backwards 2 months. And you'll see here, if I scroll, well, my data goes way back, so I'd have to scroll way over to the left, but it would go backwards and project the hires and terminations before my data was in the system. Or you can just leave it as 0, and then that's fine. Okay. Here, if you want to put in like seasonality of stuff, you can do that and put in, various information. Maybe you want to indicate that there is, seasonality in there, and it's going to vary by different settings on here. So here it'll explain this is a characteristic of a time series which data experiences regular and predictable changes. So if every summer you do a mass hire of people because there's a bunch of people that come in to work the season or something like that, then you can put that in there. If you do automatic, the system will actually go back and analyze and see, oh, look, every June you can have this massive bump up. So I can predict if I'm going further and forward that at, this coming June, you're going to have a massive bump up. So we'll go back and analyze the data. It's not like it's just going to look at the last trend and just go down or up. It will go back further. And then here you'll see I can put a maximum boundary on there. If I don't want to go above or below a certain threshold, if I don't want it to ever show like, oh, I'm going to have a massive hiring of 100 employees, I can put a maximum on there and it'll stop it. Okay, so just an option on forecasting if you want to turn that on. Of course, you don't need to turn that on. I can just choose to not have the forecasting on if I don't want to. All right, other things you'll see here. This is just telling me insights on there. Total number of terminations is NA, and that's actually 0 for May of 2025. So it's actually forecasted that stuff. I could say whether it's useful information or not. And then it'll actually show me a second one. Total hires is projected to be 2.21 for May. So maybe that's useful information for you. That's what the little light bulb is for right there. Here I can see any filters that are applied. So if you did have a filter on here, let's say by employer or something like that, you can use that and say, okay, show me what filters are actually applied to this, and it would tell you what's on there. Now you can set filters right here. This is for this analytic of going back 3 years, but you can say, oh, I want to have it to be the employer. So add in employer, and I want to only include certain employers, and I could put in or check off the boxes for the employers I want to look at, and then it's going to show different data for different employers. All right, so that's this. I can also say, well, let's apply it to all visuals. So if it's just for the employers for this one, I can do that, or I can say all employers for every visual there. We're going to look at the employer, so I can have that out there. All right, and then if I do this, then these might adjust. I don't remember for this company if I have anybody in there. Looks like I don't because nothing is really, oh, okay, I do. So it went to 262, now it's 284. So I've got about 20 employees in that other company. All right, and of course, if I want to remove it, I can just drag it off of there. Oops, let me just remove that, delete it. All right, so that's a filter if I want to do that on there. And then here you'll see I can add or remove fields. This is if I wanted to add a new analytic or new KPI or whatever graph to this one here. I could then take different fields and put them in here. Like if I wanted to do something with, I got top 5 work locations, but let's say I didn't have work locations on there and I wanted to actually do that, I could start, adding information to this and create a new one. I could say, all right, I want to do a new analytic with work location. And you can see here, like this is a count of the number of work locations. I have 284 employees. It's just counting the field called work location. So that way it matches this. I have 284 records in my database basically that are out there. But if I now again wanted to filter this or whatever, I can do it. If I don't like this visual, I can get rid of it. All right, so once you've created your analytic and you want to actually use it, then you need to publish it. When I hit publish, I have some options out here. Now, I cannot replace those default dashboards. So I will not be able to do this. If I went to one that I've edited before, I can overwrite that. But this is one I have not edited before. So I need to come out here and give it a new name. So new HR dashboard or whatever. All right, I can hit publish. And now that new dashboard is going to be available right here. All right, so these are ones that I've created, and then you're going to have your default ones that you can't touch. So these 3 I have created. I can actually go through and I can delete these and things like that. These I cannot because they're my default. So just be aware of that there. And then I can, of course, go to my settings and go to general and dashboards and then say, yes, I now want to include that new HR dashboard here under HR, and then it'll be available for me to see out there. So I could maybe remove this payroll one and select the new HR dashboard and save that, and then it would be available for me in my dashboards. Okay, so a lot to cover there. I apologize. There's a lot of technical stuff in there. We're here to help you with this if you are, first interested in it. But then once you get that configured, we're here to help you with that. So we're going to be holding hands to get you through to the right dashboard that you want to have out there, and you can see how this one is available. So let's look at our upcoming schedule, and then I will go ahead and let you go for the day. So here you can see our upcoming schedule in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about Claire, which is on-demand pay for your employees. So this is available, of course, if you have payroll. You do need to have payroll for this. If you're just an HR only, it won't work with us. Maybe your provider offers something, but this is for Criterion on-demand pay. And then in a month, 4 weeks from now, we're going to talk about the new offer letters and how to set that up and stuff like that. So that's going to be in there. And then I haven't put the one on 2 weeks from that because we do have a release coming up in late April, and it might conflict with the exact same time frame. We'll know more by March 19th what's going to be in the future, and maybe there might be something in between the now and the release. But thank you for joining us today. As always, if you have questions, please reach out to us. You'll see our number there, our email address, and if you're working with a partner, you go ahead and reach out to them. Happy to answer any questions you happen to have about this. And otherwise, I really appreciate you joining us today. Oh, Brittany did remind me, Claire is only for US clients at this time. So you're certainly welcome to join if you're a Canadian payroll client, but it is only available in the US right now. So yeah. So thank you again for joining us. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you again in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much.